ku yoddu sa xët te quality jas na ñooy
Welcome to Coping 101, a student-led series destigmatizing mental health presented by C895 and Seattle Children's. My name is Gavin. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a junior at Nathan Hill High School. Today, we are joined by Pa Ousman Jof. Pa is the founder and executive director of the Washington West African Center. Since founding WAWAC in 2017 from his living room as a volunteer-run organization, he has worked to build the organization's capacity, which now offers 10 key programs and serves more than 5,000 community members annually. Pa's experience as an undocumented immigrant inspired him to establish WAWAC and provide the services he needed but could not find. Currently, Pa sits on several boards, including the Snohomish County Racial Equity Housing Advisory Board, City of Linwood Parks Love Co-Design Team, and Washington State Department of Health Collaborative Thought Partner, where he champions and advocates for racial equity. For this episode, we will discuss the challenges of the undocumented immigrant in America and what is being done to support this population in Washington. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pa. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Gavin. I am Pa Ousman Jof, the founder and executive director of the Washington West African Center, originally from the Gambia, the smallest country in mainland West Africa.
Well, thank you so much for the little intro. Let's get right into the questions.
Certainly.
I know you do so much at the Washington West African Center, but can you give an overview of your mission and programs for our listeners?
The mission of the Washington West African Center is to connect the West Africans in Washington with local resources and bridge the gap between us and the wider community. In a nutshell, we are the 211 and the 911 for the West African community, where if they need anything, they come to us, and if we don't have it, we make a concerted effort to go find it. We provide cultural relevant wraparound services for different demographics of the community. Weekly food distribution. Every week we give out 100 to 150 boxes of cultural relevant groceries. We have an after school program for the kids in the community. We have a grandma and senior support group. We help people with housing. We help a lot of newly arrived and undocumented immigrants to actually integrate into the United States and Washington State by default through help with housing, referrals to immigration, looking for jobs, getting to get the basic documentation like ID, social security cards, and a host of other things.
That sounds awesome, and what a beacon of a community you are for doing these amazing services for so many people.
Thank you, sir.
Of course. Well, what is your own journey that led to its founding?
My own personal story. I'm one with lived experience. I've been in the United States for 20 years. In fact, tomorrow is my birthday. And the past 20 years, I have lived all kinds of traumatic experiences in the United States. I only became a U.S. citizen on September 7th of 2022. In 2008, I was arrested and detained by ICE for 4 months, released on an order of supervision and put on a monitoring bracelet for 9 solid months. The quest for independence led me to move from Atlanta, Georgia, where I used to live, all the way to Alaska, where I had no family, knew nobody, and had no connection, but just I wanted to have that monitoring bracelet off of my leg. I ran helter-skelter with fear of being deported by ICE every single day for the past 18 years. It wasn't until September 7th of 2022 that I became a U.S. citizen. During these 18 years of struggles, I've went through so much. Food to eat was a problem for me. Housing, I was on eviction. I owed 4 months rent when I moved. My daughter, my first daughter, was 3 months in her mom's belly when I was arrested and detained by ICE. You can see the trauma, the stress, and everything that this brought to me as a young person that was trying to figure myself out every day expecting I'm going to be deported back to Africa. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my livelihood. I don't know what life for the future looks like for me. All the struggles and challenges that I went through, after passing through these hurdles and overcoming them, I came up with this idea, or made the determination and the zeal and the endurance that I must create something that would serve as a smooth path for my community, where if people are even going through what I went through, they would actually have a smooth path and a way that they could go with guidance, and they'll be able to live a dignified life. There were services and things that I needed that I didn't have access to. And these are exactly the services that the Washington West African Center is now offering to the immigrant population here, but by extension, and most specifically the West African community, in a dignified way and a culturally relevant manner.
That's so amazing. And well, I'm so sorry you had to live through all that. And as I said, it must have been super hard to kind of uproot your life all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, to move to Alaska, you know?
Indeed, it was a big struggle for me. The weather was a big challenge. I'm from Africa, where it's always 70, 85, 90, 100 and something degrees. To go to Alaska, the weather was something. Food, having access to anything African, it was just so challenging for me. But thank God, I had to endure everything that I endured in order to be able to do what I do now. So I'm definitely not regretful of any of the experiences, but I thank God for them.
Absolutely. Seriously. It's so amazing how you've so resilient and been able to create the WAWAC for so many more people to make sure that they have an easier experience coming here and getting the resources they need.
Yes, that is absolutely right. I always endeavor to make sure that I am able to provide for people what I don't have. I believe this is my calling. It's God sent. This is my passion. And it may even interest you to know that I have always been a people's person. I've always been somebody that has been helpful, that have been in this type of situation. When I live in Gambia, for example, I was a student leader going to school. I participate in a lot of things. And in fact, I came to the United States in 2004 on the nonprofit work, because when I graduated from high school, I set up a nonprofit called Youth in Development and Change that was providing outreach, advocacy, and awareness creation for young people on reproductive mental health and different type of things, which is how I came to the U.S. to represent Gambia at a conference here that took place at Brigham Young University in Salt Lake City, Utah, back in 2004, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's awesome. Seriously. Well, it sounds like you're, like you said, a lifelong advocate and someone that truly cares about the populace and everyone.
Indeed.
You've been a U.S. citizen for a couple of years now. What does it mean to you to be a citizen? On the other hand, what does it mean to be undocumented?
Starting with what it means to be a citizen, it means so much because it gives me a peace of mind. I'm able to do so much. If I wasn't a citizen, for example, I just returned from Africa a couple of days ago. When I got to the airport, if it was in the citizenship status, I would have been freaking out, trembling, not knowing what to expect as I'm going through that security checkpoint at the airport in Washington, D.C., where I came through, and several other things. Every single day, if you are not a citizen, you are on the fear of being deported, the laws changing, that your life can change from like grass to grass in no time. Everything you have can just stop. So being a citizen gives you access to so many other things. I have the audacity, the guts to be able to do a lot more things with authority now. I'm able to challenge a lot of things. I'm able to stand where anybody that lives in the United States can stand. Until and unless you become a citizen, you are not guaranteed of those. There are certain rights in the United States that are just theories, but they don't apply to any and everybody unless you are a U.S. citizen. So it means so much to be a citizen because you have equal rights and be able to champion the things that you believe in. Without being apologetic and be able to do well. On the other hand, to become undocumented is a nightmare. It's a very horrible and terrible feeling that affects and interferes with your mental health, your physical health, your general wellness and everything. Because if you are undocumented, it means you are not authorized to work in the United States. You most likely cannot have a driver's license or otherwise to be able to drive a car. You cannot, a lot of times, and these are some of the things that we are struggling now that led me to create all of these things. Because sometimes even to get an apartment, or housing or any type of thing that is basic that the ordinary person with documented status has, you have to struggle. It costs you a lot more. Typical example, as late as yesterday, we had a young lady who was going to be given an apartment by somebody that we were going to pay for, and the person decided to change their mind on them because the person cannot have an apartment in their own name. If you go to get an apartment, they want you to have income. If you are undocumented, you cannot work. You want to go to school, you may not be able to, it will be very hard, or you will be paying international student fees, which will be 3 times more than what somebody that is documented, that is a resident, is going to be able to pay. You may not be able to have proper health care to be able to do anything for yourself. Insurance is going to be a problem. You go to the doctor, you can only go to the emergency room for the most part. A lot of hospitals may not see you because you have to pay out of pocket. As late as 2 weeks ago, we had somebody that has cataract in his eyes that needs a surgery. He is undocumented. He doesn't have health insurance. They say he has to pay out of pocket. I mean, over $35,000 for them to do a procedure for him. He doesn't have the money, and he reaches out to WAWAC for us to pay that for him. So all of this tells you what being undocumented means in this country. You live in fear by the day, thinking you are going to be arrested, not having access to job, and so many other things. So your life is really in a mess and uncertainty, in a state of uncertainty if you are in an undocumented status.
What were some mental health issues you faced in your time in the U.S. before you were a citizen?
So many of them. As I said, my daughter is now 15. She was 3 months in my spouse's belly when I was arrested and detained. I would not even allow her to come and visit me in the jail because I didn't know what it was going to be. It is very embarrassing. Every single day, you live in fear. I remember the famous moment when I had little or no money and I had a piggy bank in Alaska. I needed less than $20 worth of stuff for my family, diapers and a few food items. I went to Sam's Club to buy, the grocery store to buy, these things. I picked up the items, walking towards the register. I tripped and the jar of coins fell, scattered in the store. Very embarrassing. Everybody turned to look at me. My dignity, I felt that I was somebody with no dignity. The person I was working towards has to shut down her register to help me pick up my coins. A very embarrassing moment. Somebody had to help me pay that bill for me. I started thinking, is it worth it? Am I a human being? It's not because I'm less intelligent. It's not because I'm less of a person. It's not because I am not capable. It's not because I have any form of inability that is making me not being able to live a normal life, like dignified life like everybody else. It's very traumatizing. Everywhere you go, you are looking at your back to see, what am I doing wrong? Even if somebody is doing you wrong, you cannot advocate for yourself. People take advantage of you. And it doesn't matter what it is, especially folks who know that this is actually a weakness or something they can use against you. You cannot just speak up. So it was very difficult and tough for me as a person. I get sick, I don't go to the hospital because I don't have insurance, as I said earlier. I don't want to have pile up of bills. It took years and years and years for my spouse and I to even repair our credit, which is another whole thing, because we had so many bills from hospital and so many other things. But living with that trauma and that fear and uncertainty of not knowing what the future is definitely a big deal and takes a big toll on any undocumented person that lives in the United States. And something needs to be done to address these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm so sorry that you had to be in that headspace for so long. You've used the word nightmare multiple times and everything like that. And it just really sounds like that's what it was. Like, absolutely. It's like cut and dry. It was a nightmare.
It was for me then. It is still for the undocumented folks. I'm saying this because as late as yesterday, this time, we were having a consultation with an immigration attorney who was at our office doing consultation and explaining to the undocumented folks in our office, in the community, newly arrived migrants who don't know what their fate is, who are dealing with exactly what I was dealing with, and this is what they were explaining. They stay home, they have nothing to do, a good number of them on the streets, they have nothing to do. They are literally turned into becoming criminals when they are not criminals. And I was almost turned into one. Anything that is in between anybody and his or her survival, you will do everything possible to break that. But the system and the way that it is set up with the nightmare that it gives all of us ends up making us to be criminals, because if we are in the United States, not because we want to, our only crime is being in a land that is not accepting us to be there, that have set up rules and laws and systems that continue to marginalize us. If we need food to eat, if we need clothes, if we need, if it is super cold and we need shelter or somewhere to go, we need all the kind of things. It gets us to end up doing things what is set up by the system, and eventually we react, and our reactions are seen as we are the problem, when we are actually just reacting to a situation, when we should be part of the solution, when the people who create the system should make efforts to kind of fix that system, but they continue to cage us, and we want to get out of that cage. If we react to get out of the cage, now we become the spotlight, we become the highlight, we become the people that get on the media for the wrong reason, and like, oh, it's them again, black people, Africans, immigrants, Muslims, this and that, and we are labeled for who we are when we actually did not do anything but just wanting to live a nice and dignified life like any and everybody else. Immigrants, for the most part, as far as I know, especially African immigrants and West Africans and Muslims, all of which I identify as, are mostly law-abiding and good people. It's only a lack of opportunities that get us to do some of the things that we end up finding ourselves in.
And you see that across so many different groups as well, but it's always just like the painting of like the media painting people, once they get like you said, they're forced into like doing these decisions and stuff like that because of systems set up to have them purposely fail. And it's crazy because like, what else are you supposed to do when you have absolutely nothing? Like you said, you have to stay home. There's no ways you can make money. You can't get an apartment. You can't feed your family. You're not dignified.
You don't have insurance.
Exactly. And then you're forced into doing these things, and you don't want to do these things, but you have to survive. You have to find a way to live. And then as soon as something like that happens and you get caught, it's over, you know? You're painted as a villain. You're painted as a criminal when you're just trying to survive. They're giving you absolutely nothing.
Absolutely right. And as I said, I remember my days when immigration released me because they did not have a choice. Detained me for 3 months, released me and put me on an order of supervision because they didn't have a valid travel document to send me back to my country. That's the law. They needed to release me, put me on that order of supervision, get a separate independent company that continues to make the corporate America and those who created the system money by hiring a company called G4S that was trying to monitor me, that put the monitoring bracelet on my leg, that was coming to my house to visit me unannounced 30 minutes, that I needed to seek permission from every single time I needed to travel 50 miles radius outside of where I live, that I had to make a phone call to every month to report over the phone. And if I miss this, I have broken my parole and this thing. They set so many different parole and probation rules for me that if I broke any of them, I was considered a criminal. They almost set me up to break these things. That's a whole long story of its own that I don't even want to get back into. They bring these moments that I am having with you serve as a sweet and sour feeling. They bring nostalgia and take me back down some of those things. I'm not regretful, and I want to talk about them to be able to highlight and show the evil and the system and the bad system that is in place, the broken system, so that it can be fixed, and we need to call it as it is.
Absolutely, we really do need to call it as it is. Seriously, you're absolutely right. So everything you're saying, so agreeable. I 100% hear it. It's not okay. Like me, I'm mixed. I'm African American, and I was born here, and I still feel so many of these systems set up against me. Like, I've been an American citizen since my birth, but they still want me to fail. It's horrible. It really is horrible, and it's not fair to anyone besides the people it only benefits. And there's only one group that really benefits from everything. It's crazy.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about the bad, but let's switch to the good. What work does WAWOC do for immigrants who are dealing with some of the issues you faced?
A lot of work. As I said, we are just a safe haven and a safe space for the immigrants, where if they need anything, they just walk into the office and say, this is what I need, and we go look for it. Our programs are designed from the needs of the community, informed by a need assessment survey that we've done with the UW students of marketing students from UW Bethel in 2021. The community needs daycare. Childcare is a big nightmare. Seriously, as late as yesterday, the undocumented folks that I said that were at our office having this consultation with the lawyer asked us for childcare. We have an after-school program called the BDU After-School Program that is culturally relevant, that teaches the kids. I have 3 kids who are born in the United States. My oldest is 15 and 13 and 11. Last December was the first time that they had the opportunity to go to Africa because I was undocumented, money was tight, there were so many things I couldn't take them and they couldn't go by themselves. These kids needed to know their roots. They needed to know where they come from. They needed to learn about their culture. They needed to learn social skills, life skills. Their parents are busy working 1, 2, 3 jobs and don't have the time to take care of their kids. Some kids get sent home when they receive their report cards. It's not looking good because the parents don't have the time to necessarily do what they should do for the kids because they are working 1, 2, 3 jobs. We created this culturally appropriate after-school program called BDU After-School Program that helps the kids with homework, that teaches them life skills, that teaches them social skills, but most importantly, their roots and tradition and culture, and to have a sense of belonging and to believe in themselves and who they are and be unapologetic for who they are. A lot of us, including myself, brought our parents here, our moms, who traditionally back in Africa did not have access to a lot of things, that don't have formal education. WAWAC has an ESL class that is teaching newly arrived folks and folks that have been here for a while who don't have formal education to be able to learn how to read, write, and speak English. And this happens at our office for free of charge, which is benefiting so much. It may interest you to know that West Africa is home to 16 different countries, most of whom are French-speaking because they were colonized by either France, and 2 of them were colonized by Portuguese. And people from those countries, for the most part, struggle to know how to read and write. And basically, they have a miserable and horrible life. One like myself could even be appreciative of that because Gambia was colonized by Britain and we speak English as our official language. But people that come from other countries whose first language or official language is not English struggle a lot harder because now they are faced with language barrier as an additional thing. So WAWAC is not only having an ESL class, we also do a lot of outreach and advocacy, which is giving access to so many immigrants in this country and in the state of Washington and by default Snohomish County to access to information, which is power. First-hand information. There were so many rumors that circulated during COVID. For example, folks believe that the COVID vaccine was created by white people to erase the black race, and as a result, some people didn't want to take the vaccine. We had people that believed that by taking charcoal, putting it in water, soaking it in water, bathing with it and reciting verses from the Quran or the Bible, you will be able to be prevented or protected from the coronavirus. There were lots of misconceptions, myths and stuff. WAWAC partnered with the Washington State Department of Health to do outreach, advocacy, and organized and participated in we did a lot of outreach and advocacy, producing over 50 different culturally relevant outreach materials in our local West African languages, 10 different West African languages, producing over 50 different outreach materials in over 10 different West African languages for people, songs, skits, translation of uniform messages, that the community could relate to and could listen to. And all these efforts, I'm happy to inform you, led to over 30 different vaccine clinics. All these efforts led to over 5,000 West Africans in the state being vaccinated. Until this minute, we have a post-COVID project that we are doing with the Washington State Department of Health to provide recovery for the West African community. And we are doing that and raising awareness and informing the community. In late 2022, 2023, early 2023, Washington State, through the efforts of WAWAC and other immigrant rights organizations, Washington State gave over $306 million to undocumented folks as a stimulus. because there was no package. As you can see, as I said earlier, if you remember earlier, I mentioned that a lot of things that people benefit from, undocumented folks don't have access to. A lot of people benefited from stimulus money during COVID. Undocumented folks didn't. Through our advocacy efforts, mobilization and stuff, we were able to work with the Washington state, and over $306 million was distributed to over 116,000 undocumented folks in the state, where everybody end up having over $3,000 that went into their pockets as stimulus, thanks to the efforts of WAWAC and other migrant rights organizations in the state. Our parents that are here, they don't know how to read and write. They were not used to using all this electronic stuff. When they in Africa, they cook, they use charcoal, they use firewood, they use hand to do a lot of things. If they come to the United States, they need to learn how to use the microwave, how to use the washer and dryer, how to use the electric kettles and all these appliances. WAWA create a grandma support group that meets every month, that is independent, that does a lot of activities for themselves. Additionally, we have so many people that don't have access to housing. Like I said, the conventional organizations, the big corporate institutions, and as late as yesterday, I said it in a meeting that I was in with Snohomish County, lots of organizations like the YWCA, like the Goodwill, like the Volunteers of America, get corporate dollars, get government money, over 85, 90, or sometimes 100% of these monies to take care of the welfare of everybody. Those of us at the grassroots, a lot of times, if we're saying the truth, don't see the money that goes to those corporate places. These corporate organizations, bigger foundations, organizations that seemingly represent everybody and are supposed to represent everybody, give very little to communities like us. Like I said, if someone applies for housing through some of these organizations, they get put on a waiting list, it comes back, they don't have the strategies, they don't have the lived experience, they don't have the know-how, they don't know what our problems and issues are. And I'm telling you factual stories where people were denied housing because they are undocumented. When it was their turn to go get housing, they asked them for driver's license, they asked them for ID cards, they asked them for social security cards, and other things that they don't have. Income verification. Somebody that's not working, that doesn't have authorization to work, how do they have this? They don't have the solutions to those things. Eventually, when landlords come up with these things, they cannot. Now, what is WAWAC doing about that? WAWAC now, actually in the process of providing housing, have what we call a master leasing program, where we rent apartment units in the name of our organization. As we speak, we are dealing with 3 different apartment complexes here in Snohomish County and in King County and in Pierce County, where we rent apartment units in our names and put people in there. As a master lease, we sign the lease, we take the responsibility of the apartments, we're paying for everything, and we now sign a sublease with these people. We have the solutions to these problems. We sit at the table. For the longest, we have been the menu where decisions are made about our lives, where we are the entrees, where we are the desserts, where we are the main courses and everything. And now us just sitting at the table with lawmakers, with policymakers, with people that make decisions about our lives, it gives us the opportunity to decide what becomes the menu, what becomes the entree, the main course, and everything. So WAWAC is doing so much work in terms of advocacy, in terms of awareness creation, in terms of informing policy by advising and giving suggestions. As you mentioned earlier, I am sitting on the Snohomish County Housing Advisory, Racial Equity Housing Advisory Board, sitting at the Linwood Parks Law Committee, the DOH collaborative third partner, the BIPAC ED Coalition, and so many different bodies from city, county, state, and federal level, where I am actually able to give the input of my community. Not only that, data was one of the biggest challenges that we have as a community. A lot of times people will ask, how are you defending what you're saying? Any institution here that wants to do anything or provide any services or benefits for anybody, they rely on US Census data, which is unfactual, which is unrealistic and unrepresentative of our communities, because our people, for fear of stigma, for fear of the public charge rule, for fear of not wanting to be deported, for fear of not trusting government and government entities and government services and systems, and being betrayed by government so many times and being lied to, we don't just give out our information. We are hesitant. And it's one of the challenges that WAWAC is still having. But we have made several inroads and strides and progress when it comes to data collection. because we know that mental health is very important to our community and it is affecting our community, but there is no data to back this up. I'm happy to inform you that as late as a week ago, WAWAC just finished a mental health study to find out how the mental health of the West African community in Washington State and how it is affected. That study just got finished. We did in partnership with, the School of Public Health from UDAP. Late last year, we did a research study on domestic violence in the West African community, which is also another great thing because domestic violence is rampant and it's a lot and it's happening in our communities based on all the stressors and the things that I've mentioned earlier. Cultural differences, money being tied, undocumented status, so many different things. Spouses have lots of challenges and issues that lead to domestic violence in our communities. It is affecting us and we don't know it. WAWAC did a study on this. And we continue to do several other research studies, participate in so many different things that actually give us authority because we now have data. Instead of relying on 2020 census, instead of relying on 2010 census and all the things that does not actually represent the West African community, we are participating in it. And that was why during the 2020 census, WAWAC partnered with the Washington State Census Bureau with other organizations to do outreach and, of course, help our community members to tell them to be counted. And we see 75% more people being counted from our communities. So sitting at the table is one of the cool things that WAWAC is doing, in addition to providing housing, providing bill payment, providing just the safe space for our community where folks can come and apply for jobs, apply for insurance, apply for anything that they want. They just have a question, they just come and ask, and we make a concerted effort. If we don't have it, we go find it.
That was so passionate. That needed to be said. Seriously, what you said about everything and the changes that WAWAC is really making in the community by genuinely sitting at that table and making so much impactful and meaningful change in so many people's lives is incredible. And the influence you guys have on so many Western African families in Washington is incredible. They trust you guys, and you have done so much work to protect that trust, to help so many of them, and to continue growing the population and growing the community and making sure that it has a home here in Washington State. And that's so admirable. It's incredible the work you guys do.
That's right.
It's so cool to hear
That's
about.
right. And that is why we are making lots of strides. We are trusted messengers of the community. We are members of the community. I'm happy to inform you that WAWAC, being a by and for organization, our staff, I have a diverse team of staff, about 12 to 15 staff, who are from West Africa, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Senegal, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Malawi, different West African countries. And in fact, to make sure that we represent the community, one of our criteria for employing people includes your ability to speak multiple West Africa, one, two, or a couple of West African languages, where you will be able to relate and understand the people. Almost everybody is one with lived experience that knows the problem of the community, either directly or through family members and otherwise. We are doing so much to help the community. I did not mention our advocacy efforts that we are doing with lawmakers. WAWAC is constantly sitting at the table with lawmakers. As late as May 2nd, the Speaker of the House of Representatives for Washington State, Larry Jenkins, was at our office to come and talk to the community. We invited partners, we invited business owners, we invited community leaders. The community, she came, and few lawmakers, especially in Snohomish County, like Senator John Lovick and others, they came and listened to the community, tell them their problem. We tell them to get out of their comfort zone, to get out of Olympia, to come to us and listen to us now. As I said, we used to be the menu that is discussed in Olympia. We used to be the menu that is discussed in Seattle, everywhere. But now, lawmakers get out of their comfort zone. The mayor of Linwood, Kristen Fetzel, is somebody that is very familiar with the work we do. And the mayors of the different cities. We have our Sounds of Africa Festival coming up on August 17th, which is happening at Garfield Park in Everett from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. with lots of things to promote African food, music, fashion, lots of activities that are going to happen. We invite these lawmakers and policymakers and community leaders to actually come to see African culture, participate with us, enjoy it, rather than just sit in their offices and waiting for us to go to them, or only coming to us when they need our votes. Gone are the days when politicians just sit at their desk, fold their hands, and take policies and decisions that don't favor us until they need our votes and come to us. We say no to that. And I'm sending this clear message to all politicians. Get out of your comfort zones and come to us. If you want to get our votes. We have issues, we have problems, we have situations. We need things that you have control over. You are there for us, and you need to be able to represent us. Be our eyes, be our mouth, be our ears, and be able to do things that we can relate to. So as a result, WAWAC is doing a lot of things together with other immigrant rights projects. We are constantly in Olympia working and talking to lawmakers and getting them. Not only do we ask them to come to us, but we are constantly also going there. We are filing petitions and working with other organizations and immigrant rights organizations to actually champion the efforts of the immigrant community in Washington State. And this is very much appreciated.
Of course, thank you so much for being here, seriously, and telling us all these amazing things that WAWAC does. It's truly incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a success story from your organization that you could share with us?
Tons of success stories.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, everybody that works at WAWAC is almost somebody with lived experience. We help so many people. We have a family that moved here, a single mom with her mom and 5 kids, moved here from out of state. From scratch, they contacted WAWAC. WAWAC helped them to get an apartment, to look for an apartment in the area they wanted to be. Work with them to get plane tickets to come to Washington. Provided them with transportation from the airport all the way to where they were supposed to be. Put them in a hotel for days for them to finish the paperwork to get an apartment. After they get an apartment, we help the kids to enroll in school, get them to enroll in Apple Care and have access to insurance and everything, get the woman a job. Mom stays home to take care of the kids. Mom gets integrated into the grandma support group, and we have a vehicle that is donated to us that we gave to the woman to use until she was able to buy her own car. She's independent and taking care of herself and her kids. Get the kids enrolled in our after-school program. Get the kids enrolled in the Dara, which is she's a Muslim. She wants her kids to learn Islam and the religion and the like. We get her to do all of those things, and that woman is independent and taking care of herself. That is one of so many different stories that we have. An undocumented person that comes, gets married to somebody who did not want to help her adjust her status. Eventually, they got divorced. The guy moved out. Because the person is undocumented, the apartment complex wanted to kick her out. WAWAC advocated for this person. Of course, helped to provide for her. Because she didn't have the money, the apartment wanted to ask her unreasonable deposits and other things that were not within the law. We advocated for her, engaged the apartment. Eventually, they let her stay. We helped her go through some training programs, help her get a pro bono attorney who helped her file an asylum, eventually get a work permit. She got a job, and this is a single mom. She got a job, and she was able to even file her papers. She was going through a lot of domestic violence issues and was able to adjust her status eventually, and she's now independent and going by her business. We do so much for students, we do so much for kids and everybody else in the community. So WAWAC indeed has several success stories, but for the sake of time, maybe those 2 will suffice.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, those are some incredible success stories. When we normally ask people to share success stories, it's like little successes or successes on helping people overcome stuff. But you have successfully altered and created better lives for 2 families, as you described, 2 people. And I mean, one with 5 kids and her mother in tow, and another one who just got out of a relationship that was horrible, and was able to advocate for herself and to stay in the apartment to gain autonomy. And you guys have helped them all do that. And that is so awesome. Seriously, that is really amazing. What is the primary thing we should be advocating for that would be of the greatest benefit to immigrants coming to Washington?
WAWAC has 4 priority areas: housing justice, food justice, mental health, and building community power. These are all important key elements that the immigrant community in Washington State needs a lot of advocacy towards. As we speak, there is a lot of instability in West Africa, no doubt. Politically, the world is not doing well everywhere, including the United States. And Africa is not an exception. Just within last year, there were about 3 or 4 coups d'etats where the officially democratically elected governments were actually toppled by military in these countries. The youth and the folks in these countries, their hopes and dreams are shattered. And because the US government and Western governments and embassies are not issuing visas, our people find creative ways of coming to the United States. And of course, through the southern border. Evidently, Washington State has now hundreds and hundreds of newly arrived migrants who are in the streets in Seattle, in the streets in Snohomish County, King County, Pierce County, and other counties by extension that needs a place to stay. And the lawmakers from these places know what I'm talking about. The policymakers and folks who are making decisions know about these things. They need a place to stay. And we need to advocate for them. Additionally, of course, food is very important in all of our lives. Having access to cultural relevant food is very important. We are from Africa. We are unapologetic for the food that we eat. It's very difficult and hard to get them here. The United States, in fact, is set up in a way that some of these food are not allowed to be grown here. As late as when I came back a few days ago, one of the questions that the immigration officer asked me, did you bring in any food? They will ask you that question. Of course, we don't say there shouldn't be laws to protect the community, but we have a lot of things that we are restricted from having. So even when the cultural relevant food is available, it's extremely expensive. The logistics to get them here are so hard. And these were some of the things, in fact, that the business owners told the Speaker Jenkins and other lawmakers when they came to Wawak back on May 2nd. So food is something that is very important for our community that we struggle to have, especially the cultural relevant food. And for that reason, we would like to advocate for it. Those that have money, those that have resources, those that have that makes the policies and the decisions to actually consider that. If you have access to food, you just want to give me food, don't just give me anything. What you give me, we have a lot of money that is pumped into giving food to communities. For example, a lot of food banks here are supported that would support or say that they are open to the general public. We go there, they give us lentils, they give us a lot of canned food, they give us a lot of things that our communities don't consume. They are giving money to buy these things. They spend money to buy it, and in good faith, maybe they want to do it. But the know-how is not there. They don't have the lived experience. So a lot of these institutions typically would want to they have the good intention to even do right. But if you don't know something, you don't know. So the food that they end up buying, that they give to our community, 40 to 50% of it may end up getting wasted because they are not things that we consume. For example, if you go and buy anything that has pork or is made of pork, you give it to a Muslim person that is not supposed to eat it, they're going to go through it. And so many things in this country have pork in them. These are things that they don't know. And we have this experience. And one of the things that WAWAC is doing is actually having trainings and consultations and workshops and meetings with a lot of the people that are in the food industry, especially the coalition of, food banks in Snohomish County, of Washington State and others, and we provide them with training. Transportation is another thing. So there are so many things that we believe people need to be involved in the decisions that are made about them. And I'm glad that as late as a couple of months ago, Washington State just passed this Nothing About Us Without Us law, which now help people to be involved in decisions that are made about them, because it ends up wasting a lot of resources. So the current direction that is taking, where every institution or most institutions have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy and trying to include people in things that involve them, is a great step in the right direction, and we want to praise that effort, that it needs to continue. Prior to COVID, it wasn't like that. A lot of things were one-sided. We didn't have access to things. In fact, it had to take COVID and the death of our brother George Floyd that led to WAWAC having our first funding to be able to open an office and be able to do all of these things. I never had access to radio stations. I never had access to TVs. I never had access to lawmakers. I never had access to an office space. As you mentioned in your introduction, it was all started in my living room from 2017 to 2020. It had to take George Floyd, our brother, to die, and the establishment of the Black Lives Matter movement and COVID for people to start listening to us and involving us and including us in the things that are important and that matter about our lives, because they know that no one was safe until we are all safe. If all white people are safe and black people are not safe and Africans are not safe, nobody is safe. And they knew that, and that is why they started making efforts to actually include us to make sure that our inputs are sought in all the things that matter about the world. So building community power is important, giving people the opportunity to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to talk about themselves and the things that concern them, and be able to make those decisions, even if those decisions sound and seem stupid to you. You don't know their life, you don't know their story, you don't know where they come from, you don't know their struggles. It is important to allow people to lead their lives and live their lives the way that they want to live it in a culturally relevant and dignified way. And this is why WAWAC has these priority areas: housing justice, food justice, mental health, and building community power.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. That was incredible.
My mental health, as you said. So I have in 2000 and last year, a group of nursing students from UDAP came to WAWAC and asked me, what do you get out of all this? And I said how fulfilling it is to me. I get to make a lot of decisions for people, and I don't have ever have the opportunity. The only thing I get from this is being able to serve people and seeing their lives being touched positively, and that makes me happy. If it is about my mental health, I don't know how that is related, or is it important, or is not important.
How can the people listening support the Washington West African Center?
A very good question. It is important to note that 70% or more of the programs that Washington West African Center is offering are underfunded or have no funding. I run the center with passion, with dedication, with a clear vision and understanding of the community's needs and problems, supported by a wonderful board of directors, staff, and volunteers from all over. So creativity is one thing that we apply, which makes it possible for a lot of people for us to provide all the services that we're doing. And folks would wonder where it comes from. We have a few partnerships that are very important. Philanthropic organizations. I cannot go without thanking the Washington State Department of Commerce. We have a good partnership with them, running a few programs. We have support from philanthropic organizations like NTI Foundation, Verdant Health Commission, the Community Foundation of Snohomish County, that actually gave us our first money that we used to open the office space that now serves as the home of the West African community here. I want to thank them. But money is a key thing that WAWAC needs. Even if we have grants, even if we have support, a lot of that money is never enough, or is restricted. Or for government entities, their monies cannot be accessed in advance. But some of the funding we even have is reimbursement based, and we don't have the money to be able to service those things, which make it much harder. We can have money that we are approved for to provide housing, for example, but it is as good as only being on paper because we don't get the money in advance. And we have to implement the projects, retire receipts, submit an invoice to be given the money back. If we don't have the money in advance, it's hard to do that. So we are appealing to anybody who wants to donate through our website, www.wawac.org, which is wawac.org. If you go in there, our donation tab is very visible on the top right corner. You can send us a check. Our address is there on the website. You can send us a check. Our address is there on the website for where we are in Linwood. We accept walk-in cash donations if you want to. We have our bank accounts with BECU where people can actually deposit money. And we also need volunteers on a regular basis because we have all these school programs that are underfunded or has no funding, and we hate to get them stopped at some point, or we cannot take the number of people. For example, our video after school program can only take about 20 to 25 kids, and we always have over 30 people on a waiting list who want to be on it. and we are not able to provide that for them. So we want to be able to have a bigger space. We want to be able to have our own place that we are going to build to suit, where we would not be paying rent and going through all of these things, which is the futuristic Wawak village. So we accept donations, and we would appreciate a lot of donations, whether it is in cash, in kind, materials, people that move in here. As we speak, I have somebody that's waiting at the office for us to be able to provide them with a new apartment unit we just took, in Everett, that needs everything. The people we put in there don't have anything. They just walk into the apartment unit with their clothes. We need to buy them mattresses. We need to buy them beds. We need to buy them living room sets and all of these things. Or if somebody has access to those things, they can donate it. So we take used clothes, we take used electronics, used household appliances, and everything used that somebody has that they may not need anymore, or that is bothering them in their garage, in their parking lots or whatever. There would be somebody in the community that may be able to benefit from it, and we will appreciate those type of support. So donation in cash, in kind, or volunteer work are some of the key things that we need. They can also send us an email to info@wawac.org.
Well, thank you so much, Pa, for coming to the station and teaching us about Wawak and your own experience with immigration here in America. It was an incredibly inspirational story. It was so amazing to hear about all the amazing work you do at Wawak, some of the success stories, and what what we need to do in Washington to make it better for immigrants, the Western African community, and just everyone in general. It was a super meaningful conversation, one of my favorite interviews I've ever had, and I really, really appreciate you coming in here and talking to me and spending some time with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much to you, Gavin. Thank you for the production team, the entire management of the radio station. And of course to the Community Foundation of Snohomish County that actually facilitated this for us. We appreciate it. And thanks to my board of directors, the amazing Wawak staff that I have and volunteers. And on behalf of the entire West African community, we thank everybody that is listening.
Thanks again to Pa Ousman Jof for joining us today. Copy 101 brings voices together to advocate for better self-care and destigmatize mental health from a teen's perspective, and is made possible by Seattle Children's, Hansmeier Builders, and Compass Health, Northwest Washington's behavioral healthcare leader. No matter our age or background, we all face challenges. There are healthy ways to cope with more episodes and education to get you started at c895.org/coping101.
Barabu kadomo di masa dia tuliye kani madam makamlim kibar lebenda barabu kadomo baba di maka tayle tulolo inna baba wasinti state ngolugo ikomo ngolugo ikomo wasinti state ngolugo ikomo ngolugo ikomo sa apply no kani atare mantara do kola ikomo ibe do kola foi mantara do kola walking family task credit going pele mesilo kan katanyinin signing amoy signing ya moy fanay wuli ya tanyinin sibe sito wuli efisiati ko nibe wasentim bankoka kairo na tay konko bayla wasino babule tanyinin February 1st la bela tilana mu goto wasentim bankoka na modila siyade ganno baninul mankan fali malonko nyurbe ma ko rolela fali malonko nyurbe ma rolela fali malon nyurbe ma ko rolela fali malonko Washington State, Yakibaro Lena Tanma. Oh, Bejambaro Lela. Washington State, Yakibaro Lena Tanma. Bejambaro Lela, Kodokuladu, Najambaro, Malambalu. Ibato Lela, Kodokuladu, Najambaro, Malambalu. Ibato Lela. Washington, West Africa, Sentankoli, Kolaboy. Ikona a blessing never working families that's craving sanyini. Ikona a blessing munasimi never working families that's craving sanyini. Manke don toro tiborola so ya tanyini. Itado kwa kila no signs sign. You know more can sign. Miliado ku 2022 wala baso tala sign. Hani dora kirin do kungo zaza to sign. Manza gundala na mo bunda sartol dundile sign. Ikonga nanga dundi juna pamfana sa soto sign. Wuliya katoke kwisa soto jan sign. Local na mo kanim bunda wasintim banko na se phone yurubela sontala sign. This one is fine. Nindo di wando man killing ko man sakundala federal government nindo na to sign. This one is fine. Timandi niela sarto timandi iko. Timandi niela sarto timandi iko. Sa soto kelno minka nyanta dola wuli killing me fulola ba timandi iko. Timandi niela sarto timandi iko. Timandi isa soto kelno minka nyanta dola wuli killing me fulola ba timandi. Ma come on. Kaito tebulu ma apply no wa wangol contact baba wa was nyala molu wa ali kana silla la kullo mal be kantabine wa wangol Washington State yekibaro le natanma bejambaro lela Washington State yekibaro le natanma baba bejambaro lela ikodo kulalu na jambaro lu malambal ibato lela ikodo kulalu na jambaro lu malambalu ibato lela